Scott McCrea, he has a new job title. Let's see, our Director of Tourism and Convention Sales. Is that what we got now?
That's what we landed on, yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right. So this is reflective of us losing some team from attrition and others taking, as well as letting some people go and others taking additional responsibilities. So we'll just dive in. I know this is a great group for asking questions, so we can pause whenever you want and, you know, or do it at the end, whatever you want to do. But, you know, we were here the last time in July, and I think that this has, if you remember back in the summer, I think in August, ICER was going around looking at which were the hardest hit industries, and they did some projections for the year. And in terms of leisure and hospitality, they were saying that, you know, which includes tourism, also the transportation sector also includes tourism too. But if we just look at leisure and hospitality for the interior, ICER was thinking that we would be experiencing about 29% job loss by the end of the year. And you can see these figures through September. We're almost right where they projected. We're minus 30% for job loss in the leisure and hospitality sector in the interior. And then just a reminder, I think we did this last time, but where we were, we had 5 record-breaking years, and this is one indicator, hotel motel tax. So we were on the up and up, deliriously happy with how tourism was growing and being a rock star in Alaska's economy. And then this is a same little different view. The purple is winter, the green is summer. This is also hotel motel tax collections. And you can see we've had a steady growth in both, particularly in winter. Winter has grown since the Great Depression and during the Great Depression. And here's where we are now. We have hotel motel taxes through August. And so we see a 57% loss in hotel motel tax revenues. And you can see how far we've fallen. This is the combined taxes from Fairbanks and North Star Borough, which includes the cities of Fairbanks and North Pole. And this is another look, hotel motel occupancy percentage. And Scott, is this where I'm turning it over to you?
I believe so.
Can't remember what we said. Okay. All right. So I'll you just tell me when to move the slide and I'll turn it over to you.
Actually, if I may, Scott, before you begin, just to remind everyone, I am monitoring the chat box. You may also take yourself off of mute if you have any questions. And before we move on, if I may just ask a question, Deb, you lobbed out a percentage on the last slide. Did you say things were, the revenues were down 50%? 57%. 57%. Okay.
Yeah,
so
and that's only through August. So we get the information a little bit delayed from the three collecting government bodies.
Wow. All right. Thank you. So, go ahead, Mr. McCrea.
All right, thanks, Jomo. Thanks, Deb. Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah, so just kind of follow up on Deb on some of the other stats that we track on just to help us kind of keep an eye on what's happening in the local industry. Another stat is the local hotel motel occupancy rate. This is not just small caveat. This isn't all hotels and motels report this data, but a pretty good percentage of the ones in the borough do. So again, like we've said, 2020 was off to a positive start. You see those increases over 2019, 6% and 8% respectively, January and February, and then that significant decline going into April and through the summer. September turned out better than I think anticipated, with just a 25% decline in occupancy over September of 2019. Next slide, please, Deb.
Actually, Scott, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Is there a breakout within these percentages of, say, out of state versus in state or local?
There is not,
versus, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Overall numbers. Next slide. Deb, can you advance to the next slide? There we go. So since March, we've had a cancellation of 32, canceled, postponed, or moved to a virtual format. 32 different events, meetings, and conferences. And these are ones that Explore Fairbanks had a role in bringing to Fairbanks. So pretty much every event that we were involved in bringing here since March was did not transpire. And just give you a sense of what does that look like in terms of numbers. So the combined 32 events was estimated to bring in a total of 5,446 attendees, a little over 20,300 room nights, and then an economic impact, both direct and indirect, of about 12.2 million. So we're kind of monitoring the national landscape for what do meetings and conventions look like going into 2021, and it seems unlikely that first quarter will have much of a return. And kind of basing this on, there's a number of trips we attend typically at Explore Fairbanks that we go to that take place in the first quarter, and none of those are transpiring at this point. They're all looking at being held later in the year. One common buzzword that's being floated around in meetings and conventions is when they do return again, it'll be looking to add more of a hybrid approach, which will combine a virtual format with an in-person one. So like I said, we're monitoring what's happening nationally on that one. Next slide. So of course, we reported on back in July, we tracked the arrivals and departures at the Fairbanks International Airport. Again, 2020 off to a good start. And then the going through through October there. Year to date, loss of 59% over 2019. As we're talking, Clark and I were talking before, it's on the paper today. Actually, there's an article in the Newsminer that Delta has actually launched a second Seattle flight taking place during Thanksgiving week. There'll be another one in December as well. So they'll be having two daily flights from Seattle to kind of correspond with the holiday travel there. Next slide.
Actually, before you go on, Scott, if I may.
Yes.
So this does kind of, if you wouldn't mind, send me this presentation after the presentation.
Sure.
Again, my question regarding, again, when we were only 25% down on occupancy, was that in September?
That was September, yes.
And yet we're 63% down on employments, deplayments in September. Again, really what I was trying to see or wondering about is the effectiveness of you all, your marketing of, hey, explore your own state, explore your own community. If that might act as a foil, the effectiveness of that messaging.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have hard data. We're barely surviving doing the marketing right now. So we really can't track conversions, but all we have to go on is anecdotally from our business partners. And yes, they saw this summer a lot of locals as well as a lot of in-state, particularly from the Anchorage Bowl. So that's all we can tell you in terms of anecdotal information.
Yeah.
The best of both worlds moving forward would be if we could get the out-of-state and international tourists back, but we have more in-state travel.
Yeah, ideally. Okay, next slide, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, so border crossings. I mean, obviously this, no surprise here, given that the border was closed to non-essential travel, that those numbers would be so dramatic compared to 2019. Of course, that border restriction, it kept on a monthly basis, it kept being put forward to being lifted the next month. It was supposed to be lifted November 21st, but it's now been extended until December 21st. And we think, just hearing, also anecdotally from some tour operators who have kind of catered to the Canadian market as well, that it's probably going to go further into 2021. How much further, it's anyone's guess. But what some of our tour operators are doing, because in the summertime, it's pretty popular, especially for European travelers, to have these land tours that combine the Yukon and Alaska together. Some of those operators now are just planning Alaska only. just anticipation of the possibility of that border not being open. And then subsequently on the other side, we have Yukon operators who are just focusing on keeping their tours within the Yukon as opposed to trying to go across the border. Next slide. So of course, everyone wants to know, what is the 2021 cruise season look like? So as it stands now, the Center for Disease Control had their ban on U.S. On cruise ships sailing. That was lifted at the end of October, and they put into place what they're calling conditional sailing for cruise ships. It's about a 40-page plus document, lots of tight restrictions and regulations for what it's going to take for cruise ships to resume sailing in U.S. waters. There are actually cruises that were planning before the end of 2020 to resume sailing, and they halted those sailings just so they can take some time to kind of better understand the guidelines and put into place those different measures that are being expected of them. And then, of course, for the Alaskan cruise season, we still have that issue that's out there that, Canada has the ban on cruise ships entering Canadian ports. That was to expire in October. It's now been extended until end of February of 2021. What we hear from our cruise ship partners is there's definitely the interest there in resuming sailing again in summer of 2021. There's the consumers are wanting, Alaska is, a desirable location, but specifically what that is going to look like at this point, it's anyone's guess. I guess one thing that Alaska does benefit from is the benefit of time to some extent, because we're looking ahead to the summer. So if cruise ships resume sailing in other ports here going into 2021, they'll have an opportunity to kind of work out some of the kinks and so forth to be prepared for that summer season.
Yeah, and while Scott's talking about that, the Alaska Travel Industry Association has a cruise work group, which will be part of it. There's a subgroup for the rail belt, but one of the things for the conditional sail is that communities can say no to cruise ships. So that's one of the conditions. So part of this is helping communities in Southeast feel comfortable with cruise ships coming back to their communities. And the main concern, I think, from those communities is they just don't have the health facilities that the urban areas have. So they want to be super cautious in terms of visitors entering their community. So that's another piece of this puzzle that needs to happen, and having the communities feel comfortable.
Generally speaking, would you all say that the Canadian rules are more tight and restrictive than the American ones?
Absolutely.
Which is to say,
yes, definitely.
Which is to say, if they can cross the Canadian hurdle, we could have some confidence they'd be in a good position to keep us safe here in Alaska or across the United States.
Yeah, I think my I think it's 90% caution and maybe 10% political. So we'll see, how everything plays out.
Hey, Deb, can I ask a question real quick too? There's the ban on entering Canadian ports. That's our ferries as well.
Yeah, isn't it, Scott? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. It's everybody. It's everything. Yeah.
It's over a vessel over 150 passenger size. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions on the cruise? Move on. I got one more slide. Okay. All right, to close my portion with some positivity. Always try to do that. So, typically my department, the tourism department, we're providing that outreach to travel agents and tour operators domestically and internationally, going to trade shows, going to sales missions, or bringing them here to explore Fairbanks. Of course, that's not taking place right now. So in absence of that, like so many people have moved to, we started doing back in April these virtual webinars to continue that education and outreach to travel agents and tour operators. Been received quite well. We've also expanded it so that some of our different our tourism partners have an opportunity to participate as well and promote their products to some of these travel trades. So probably be continuing this, looking ahead here into 2021, keeping this going. So part of the messaging, yes, we talk about the highlights of Fairbanks as a year-round destination. Also use an opportunity though to educate them on what's the latest in terms of the travel mandates to Alaska. How are our operators, tourism partners here in Fairbanks adapting to make their business COVID-19 friendly? Because we know when people are looking to return traveling again, they want to know that the destination they're going to is safe and that the activities they're participating in is safe. So it's an opportunity for us to showcase what is being done along those lines.
We do have a question in the chat, Scott and
yes,
Ms. Deb.
Any hope for Chinese travelers?
Yeah.
I would say in terms of looking ahead to what international markets will be the quickest to return, I think it's going to be a while for the China market to return. There's some obstacles in the way there. But there's hope. I think, looking though, there's also, I mean, when we talk about Chinese visitors who are coming to Fairbanks, obviously there's always a big focus on the mainland China market. There's also a pretty significant Chinese American market in the lower 48 destinations, within LA and others that have been one of our bigger providers of from that market here, especially during the winter months. So I promise there, but as far as mainland China, it's gonna, I think I'd say a couple of years there.
Right, Scott, and I pose that because we all remember well the excitement and the enthusiasm that you were providing and the efforts, the outreach you guys had gone and done things, not just mainland Thailand, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, and I hate to turn off that spigot because we're offering Alaska when they come. Anyway,
yeah,
just hopeful.
Yep.
And we do have, we've talked before, we've had market representation in the China market. We have maintained that contracted there. It's been greatly reduced to just focusing on maintaining our social media platforms in the China market on WeChat and Weibo. So we're continuing that presence there, as well as in German-speaking Europe, which I think in terms of international markets, the one that has the most promise of returning the quickest, it'll be that long-standing market for us. Again, it's at a greatly reduced level, but we felt it was important just to make sure that we're still on the minds of travel, trade, and consumers in those markets.
Yep, thank you.
How have the participation been with the training?
Great. We've had, I think, combined with all the different webinars we've had, it's close to about 400 travel trade participants, both domestically as well as internationally, have been participating.
Outstanding.
Yeah, virtual's where it's at. And the other thing is, all of our trade shows basically ceased, the in-person ones, but now we're starting to see more and more virtual trade shows. So Scott and Ed Malin in that department have participated in a number of them now. So they've had one-on-one appointments as they would in a marketplace, but virtually. So those are slowly happening. So this kind of sums up us as an organization. So we cut our budget right away. We knew this was not going to be good for the tourism industry. So back in April, we cut our budget from 4.1 million projection to 2.8 million. And that included $1 million from our reserve. And just so in perspective, Alaska was really doing well during the Great Recession, if you remember, but tourism was not, because we really depend on discretionary income and an economy in the lower 48 and globally that's doing well. So we really got hit. Our board took it upon ourselves to start building our reserve for the next recession. But we never dreamed something of the depth and breadth that what we're experiencing now. And so just a reminder too that we have a lot of small business partners. That's what we're all about. And just this slide might be a little confusing, but early on, I think I mentioned back in April, we decided to cut 5 positions. We hired one of those back for the summer only. And then we've lost 4 to date through attrition. 3 of those 4 we're not going to replace. But I think the point is we could have kept our staff as it was. We could have kept, and we also cut our salary. So we had, most people had 10% cuts. Our directors had 15 and 25% for me. And we did that. We could have kept everybody in place. We could have kept our salaries, and we could have sat here and done nothing, right? But that's not how we roll. So we made a decision early on that we wanted to continue marketing. And I think this, the charts on the right here is trying to show, because we did what we did, we're able to spend $500,000 more on marketing. And so we did enter a remarketing plan right away. We also had this in place in April, and this had a phased in approach. And the first thing that we did, I think we probably mentioned to you before, we did a 360 virtual vacation. We had some 360 assets, but we hadn't put them all together and finalized them yet. So our team, our communications team really rallied, and they were able to launch this campaign on April 27th. And we got quite a bit of national play. We knew a lot of people were hunkering at home on the internet, and we wanted to be able to be a part of their hunkering down. And then we did our Explore Local campaign. There was a lot of back end kind of that we had to do. First of all, we had to find out who was opening or who was planning to open. So we were able to change part of our website so we could indicate that on the listings. And then we also wanted to know what kind of best practices people were following for COVID, because our guests were interested in this. And so we were able to also to gather that information and put it on the website. So that was sort of all the back end stuff that we had to do for our Explore Local campaign. And then as we've already talked about, we did an in-state campaign with summer messaging and videos. And I just want to mention,
if I may, before you go, can you go back to the last slide? So again, you had individual pages for each one of these particular events or attractions. Because I'm seeing Fairbanks Community Museum there, and the green box on the left, and then that is like the sub sheet where it talks about whatever precautions they have in place.
right. And we also have a spreadsheet with all these businesses so there's one spreadsheet on our website says Fairbanks Open for Business, and you click on that and you get them all in a list form. And this is when you go directly to their listing. So that's an important part of, our conversation with our potential guests and our guests. And we have seen it trickling. And then one thing I meant to mention, we have been working very closely with the military in our community. We've often gone to orientations on base, and the new normal is now we are working with these off-post tours with the garrison at Fort Wainwright. So we're welcoming incoming soldiers. These happen Friday mornings, and this was a collaborative effort with the Fairbanks Chamber of Commerce and Military and Veteran Affairs on UAF campus. And Colonel Ruga showed up a couple of weeks ago and thanked us for this these off-post tours. So this is one way where we're continuing to work with the military, with our armed services here in Fairbanks. And then we also launched a webpage that's specifically for the armed forces, and we worked with the garrison too. They reviewed the content. So I know FEDC does such great work with military, and we just wanted to let you know that we're doing a small piece of that ourselves.
Joe?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Deb. Deb, I hear great things about that welcoming group that you have working out there. Do you plan to expand that to Eielson?
We would love to, and we know that at the when we have the civilian military meetings that the borough does, that they were taking notes and they were talking about it among themselves, but we haven't gotten there yet. But yes, very much so. We'd love to do that.
Hey, Deb.
I'll see if I can help you. I haven't even met the new commander yet. This new normal is awkward to work in, but you know, we'll get there.
Got it. Yeah, one of the great things that the Garrison did was they donate the buses, right? So, because we wouldn't have been able to, and now with social distancing, they sometimes have 2 to 3 buses that come here, and we just wouldn't have the resources to pay for buses, or, you know, the industry certainly can't donate them as to where we are now. So that was a great, without the Garrison doing that, we wouldn't be able to pull them off.
Hey,
One
Deb,
of the
if you
things,
don't,
you know, that is important about expanding the military mission is the community recognizing that they need to make some internal changes to be able to take advantage of that new economic activity. And, you know, if we don't do things like you're doing, you know, reach out and make them a part of our community, then it's just activity out in the base, and it doesn't reach to us. So you know, that's a perfect segue to bringing them into our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and you know, the Garrison made this mandatory, so they have a mandatory on-post tour as well as this off-post tour. And their families are invited. So sometimes we do have some spouses and children.
so Deb,
And yeah,
I'm sorry, if you don't mind, at the end of this, because well, you, I, Jim, you know, we know exactly what you're talking about, but there may be people online who actually don't know what you're talking about or what we're really talking about regarding these tours. What I know is that when I first moved up here to go to UAF, it would have been great if they had something like you're doing to help me familiarize myself with the town. So when you're done with your comments, if you wouldn't mind just kind of high level describing what we're really talking about here. It's
sure.
almost like an orientation.
Yeah. I mean, I could do it now. It's just pretty simple. They meet on base, they get on the buses, they come to the Morris Thompson Cultural and Visitor Center. It's their first stop. And then we have a welcome by a community leader. This was something Colonel Rugo really wanted. So we have a mayor or a chief of staff or the university president come and greet them. And then we do a brief orientation as well as Alaska Public Lands Information Center. And, you know, there's free entry to the national park. So they tell them about that. And they also distribute the cards often there. So they see the exhibits quickly at the Morris Thompson Center, which gives a great overview. Then they get into the buses, and then we have a step-on guide. It's usually our staff, and sometimes the chamber provides an individual, depending on how many coach buses we have. And so they do about an hour-and-a-half tour of the town. They stop at UAF, Military and Veteran Affairs, gets on the bus and talks to them about everything on campus. And then depending on the season, there might be a stop at Pioneer Park where they can get out, or this winter we offered the ice park at Town and Valley Fairgrounds was a stop also. And then they come back here, and so they're usually here back by about 11 o'clock. So it's from 9 to 11, and then they go back to base.
There's still that loop around, say, Los Angeles, the box store district. So they also get to see like where things are in town.
Yes. Yeah, they see the medical facilities, they see soccer fields, shopping areas. Yes.
Great.
There's a script that our step-on guides use that's very detailed.
Does the community in North Pole participate, Deb?
They do not. We do welcome bags, so businesses are allowed to put in if they have discounts or if they have tchotchkes that they want to donate. And I'm not sure who from North Pole may be in that right now.
But it's really great.
Okay, we spent, so this is a video. I think I showed you a video last time. I'm a little gun shy because I tried to show a video last night and the sound didn't work. So I'll try it, and if it doesn't work, I'm gonna pause it, I think. Does anybody have a tip on how to make that sound work if it doesn't? I don't know. I don't know what happened. Can you hear anything?
No.
Not yet.
No,
We can't hear.
Okay, it's not working then. I don't know why the sound's not working. But this is Isaiah. I think y'all know him, and this is a video that we launched this summer that talks about why you should come downtown and explore local. And then we also did some more national campaign. We did an Imagine Here. We changed all of our digital ads to say imagine whatever, and then to explore Fairbanks responsibly. So that dual messaging of, think about us, and if you come, travel responsibly. And then we also did a small campaign talking about our wide open spaces where this might be a good place to socially distance, and where caribou outnumber people. And then on August 21, we launched a nationwide Aurora season campaign, and that actually went beyond our national borders too. And, we give dates to Aurora season. August 21 is the beginning, just to help visitors plan. And right now we're working on our winter campaign. So we're working on videos that are very similar to what we launched in the summer, only it's featuring winter things to do. The other thing that you're going to see is we are going to be heavier on our mask up messaging in our local campaign. We received a grant from the Alaska Community Foundation to do that. We kind of applied for that at the last minute as our cases were escalating, and our partners in the health field were trying to get messaging out on best practices. So we applied for a grant to amplify our messaging on that. And lo and behold, about 2 weeks ago, we got notification that we got it. So we're hustling to develop some ads and also that could be used on a digital platform to get a little harder hitting on, hey, let's keep our visitors safe, the few that we have. Let's keep our employees safe, and let's keep our community safe. So we're going to get a little bit outside of our comfort zone, but we're all in delivering those messages. And that's our presentation.
And an excellent one it is. Thank you very much. All right, we're actually at the bottom of the hour. Plenty of time for Q&A. So if I would just invite anyone who would like to, who has any questions, please just go ahead and unmute yourself and fire away. Rep Prox.
Yeah, Deb, thanks. Great presentation. I was wondering whether the requirements, let's see, there's a requirement for testing before you fly to Alaska, and then another one, I believe it's a 5-day strict social distancing, they call it.
Yeah.
Anyway, do these requirements provide confidence for visitors, or does it discourage people, and what's the value of that?
Well, both. And this has been a journey. So the changes in the mandate, we're on board with the testing. We get that. The only way that our guests can enter Alaska right now is through the airport. And the testing from the beginning of the summer to now, there are a lot more options. There are at-home tests that are pretty quick turnaround. You can do that within 72 hours. We have a lot of anecdotal information that works. But what you bring up is our point of contention is the 5 days strict social distancing. In the summer, it was 14 days strict social distancing. And quite frankly, many of us were not even aware of that. We never got past the testing part. We were so concerned at getting the messaging out that you have to test when you come that we really weren't talking about the 14 days strict social distancing. And I can tell you anecdotally that we just don't think that was followed. There's not any enforcement. We don't think it's followed. So Corey Eberhardt from Taste of Alaska Lodge and I are both on the Alaska Travel Industry Association board. And we instigated a letter to the governor that said, can you change the must strictly social distance to strongly advise? And that has not happened. But I can tell you, that our winter traveler, if they're coming from outside, they're a shorter vacation. They spend most of their time here in Fairbanks, but it's a shorter vacation than normally our summer visitors have. So that 5 days would basically mean that they wouldn't be doing anything while they're here on the ground. So we're, while that is in place, quite frankly, I don't think it's being followed. And I don't think there's any enforcement in following it. Scott, do you have
Okay.
anything to add to
Yeah,
that?
I was just going to add to that. So another part of this too is that what requirements other states are now putting into place, California, Oregon, Washington, which are significant providers of our winter markets. So they're starting to put in strict requirements now where if someone does leave the state upon their return, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that's that doesn't necessarily encourage people to go somewhere outside the state. If coming back, they have to find a way to meet that requirement.
It's interesting. I was thinking about that if you've taken the test before you show up in Alaska, you're statistically, I would think, at higher risk of catching COVID than transmitting COVID to someone else in Alaska. Apparently other states have caught on to that. What suggestions do you have that we can do to help you improve things?
That's a good question. I'm not sure what that answer is. I think being aware of how hard hit the tourism industry is and being sensitive to that. And we really we belong to the United States Travel Association, and I'm actually on the board of directors of the United States Travel Association. And they are pushing very hard for some tourism specific funding in this next round of stimulus funding. So things that really targets the sectors of the economy that are hardest hit. And certainly leisure and hospitality is one of those, in addition to transportation. So being supportive on a national level, and then if those funds are distributed to the state and that they are directly used to help those sectors that are hardest hit. We really need that additional stimulus money. And when I say we, I mean small businesses and businesses as well as tourism businesses, as well as, destination marketing organizations as ours. It has been so hard for us to piece together stimulus money for an organization. We're a 501c6 and not like the PPP wasn't, the PPE wasn't available to us, right? Maureen? Yeah. And we've just really had to cobble the funding together, and we're still doing that. The borough actually has an ordinance that's evolving now that's been introduced. It was introduced on Thursday at a special meeting last Thursday to put aside to spend part of their CARES Act money directly to Explore Fairbanks. So that's the last piece we have in play this year until hopefully some more stimulus money comes through. Someone asked a question about Yukon Quest, and they are doing just one that's in Alaska. They're not crossing the border, obviously, and I'm looking at our calendar to see if I can figure that out, but I think it's a 300. I'm not sure. Scott, do you know?
I think it's
a shorter race.
It's a shorter race, and they're doing one on the Yukon side as well.
Yeah, so each will be a separate event.
Dash.
And the best way to go is to explorefairbanks.com and our calendar section. That's the best way that we're keeping things up to date because it's ever changing. So we actually didn't put a calendar in our winter guide this year just because we have a very abbreviated one just because it was too hard to get the information and what everyone's doing. We are expecting the World Ice Art Championships to happen, and then Dick Berkeley's Ice Park is also going to be operating as far as we know.
Okay. We have someone 907-444-1125. You've taken yourself off mute.
Yes, thanks, Jomo. Got a question for Deb. Jim Sackett here. Two-part question, Deb. Are you in communication with your counterparts in Whitehorse?
We aren't. Are you, Scott? But the Alaska Travel Industry Association is. ATIA is.
Okay, I'm just curious. they're working from their side, opening the border, if you know that they're trying to get that done or not.
Yeah, and we've had conversations off and on all summer. We sort of had and we were trying to get like the concept of travel bubbles. You know, in my mind, an RV is a perfect travel bubble, but neither side, our DHHS and the Canadian side, they didn't go there. They just couldn't get themselves there.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been a challenge. And I think our counterparts, they're willing, like we are, to try to see if we could do something along those lines, you know, a model travel bubble thing, just for the Alcan border, you know, to try to test it this summer. And we just couldn't get it done. Just couldn't get them, the health experts to go with us.
Okay. Thanks, Deb.
We actually even had some conversation with Senator Sullivan's office about it too over the summer. And they were empathetic, but they weren't optimistic, and that proved to be true. Thanks for the question.
Oh, looks like Jim's trying to ask a question. Do you have a question, Jim?
There I go. I don't have some, I do not have a question. I have some sad news that I just received this morning. Jinx Whitaker passed away. I know that she has many friends in this group. Friends in this group. So, you know, our prayers need to go out to Jinx, of course, and to Jim. They are in Arizona. So anyway, certainly sad news.
Yeah, I had a call from Buzzy Q this weekend. She was crying. She's down there too. And I guess the Jinx's daughters were able to get there and be by her bedside in time.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Jim. Wow, I was really focused on the tourism discussion. Now I feel quite a bit distracted. Circling back around to, if I may, if I can, circling back around to Rep. Prox's question regarding policy or funding. Again, we know that the tourism industry and those that support it, particularly the hospitality industry, have been under an enormous amount of stress. And we've received information at our board meeting on Friday that indicates they're going to be under even worse stress for the next couple of months. And then again, on the back end, we'll probably even need some support thereafter. So again, any thoughts that you all might have as far as, you know, whom should we be looking to and what should we be saying to them to try to get the spigot flowing on support? And then what kind of support should we be advocating for?
Yeah, I don't know who was reporting at your board meeting, but from our perspective, definitely the stimulus money. I mean, we definitely need more stimulus packages specifically targeted to the tourism industry. And quite from the state perspective, I would hope that that would be distributed directly and not through the municipalities, that there'd be a more direct conduit. So we can get that money out quickly to the businesses. I mean, I guess I should mention, you know, in the public policy arena, I'll give you an example of where we're working to try to get some relief for tourism businesses. And this is a small case study. We have a group of tour operators that operate at a Chena Lake and Tana Lakes recreation areas that's run by the borough. And they do ice fishing and snow machining from those areas. And their contract with the borough is that they pay 10% of gross to use the whether it's the lakes for the ice fishing or the trails, and they have to do 10% of gross of the whole tour, even if they're just using a portion of the trail that's on borough land. So about the 3 businesses and I drafted a white paper this summer, and we finalized a white paper, and we sent it to the borough and they looked at it. They did a comparison of their fees with the other boroughs. In our white paper, we had done it with other public lands in the area like BLM, and saw that that was an out of whack rate. It was higher than should be. And when the borough did its examination of the other boroughs, they realized that was out of whack. So they want to do a major overhaul to that fee structure, but they're having some internal challenges to do that because the land manager just left. And anyway, but we haven't given up. We've recontacted the mayor to ask if they would do some kind of emergency suspension of those fees for this winter. So anything like that, I guess where I'm going with this is anything like that, that can help businesses that are trying to operate now, and they're lean and mean in their operations, and they need to have conditions that are conducive to them being able to operate lean and mean. Their margins of profits are going to be very low, and anything like that that can help them is welcome. And that's, you know, the main one that we've been working on, and I'm thinking that maybe some other things will surface that need some public policy addressing in order to help relieve some of the pressure.
We made a similar recommendation this spring at FEDC that was to state policymakers and federal as well. Again, there's things you can do to, again, there's stimulus, but then there's lowering expenses, and you know, anything that the community, the municipalities, or the state could do to kind of lower the burden. Again, it's not as sexy as handing out a check, but again, it can be impactful. Again, if you could simply lower someone's expenses, lower their burden. Okay.
Yep, it works both ways.
Again, we still do have some more policymakers. Rep. LeBon. Oh, I see that Chancellor Rogers, you jumped to the top of my participant list. I wasn't sure if that's because you tried to take yourself off mute for a question.
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we don't need to belabor it. Actually, Mayor Welsh, I wasn't sure if you happened to be online with the discussion of the tours, but Jim had asked if any of the North Pole businesses were participating in those Fort Wainwright orientation tours. Just didn't know if you had any insight.
Thank you, Jomo. We're not participating business-wise with the Fort Wainwright tours, but last week, I heard Colonel Birkeland come out and make an appeal for us to be more involved with his Eielson Air Force Base community and his military families. So that's been, like, we're not trying to make an excuse, but the COVID has been challenging for us to even get together, as much as he came to visit me with his command chief and a public affairs official on October the 1st. That's the first time that we actually were able to get together to know each other. And he's been off on TDYs and things of that nature. It's been very hard to pin anything down. And, you know, they had I'll call it a COVID rush that hit them pretty hard from their volleyball team and their school out there. So he had to put down some more measures that kind of keep us somewhat separated. But that's always been a thing. How did it go last night, Deb, with the bed tax committee?
Okay, I rushed to do a 15-minute presentation so they could have 15 minutes of Q&A, and nobody asked any questions. So either I was really boring, or I don't know. I don't know.
No,
I don't know how to read that.
I think it's because you're so polished, you know.
Oh yeah, right. Thank you, Mayor. That's nice.
Yeah, they get enough information from you, is what I think from that. But,
yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
And I have been on the tour, on the buses to Fort Wainwright myself, and it's very impressive too. And so
yeah, I just want to clarify, like, we don't go to North Pole in this tour.
No, you don't.
We do have businesses. So we have a list of military discounts that we have, and their welcome things. Right. So we have information about North Pole businesses, and they have the opportunity to put things in our welcome bag. but we just don't go. But Eielson would be, North Pole would be an obvious stop, right? If there was a tour coming from Eielson, that would be
Sure.
their first or last stop as part of the
Yes.
tour. So that would be a different logistical scenario. I think that would work
Sure.
well.
Mhm.
You all started to discuss bed tax committee. No, that's for you, Deb. Bed tax committee?
That's so the North Pole has like a discretionary grant program like the city of Fairbanks does. And last night, I think there were like six applicants, and we did a presentation. On it works a little bit differently because, you know, with the city of Fairbanks, FEDC and Explore Fairbanks are treated differently from the discretionary grants. In North Pole, we're all treated the same in the discretionary process. You know, of course,
okay.
the money's is much smaller, especially this year, right? Because there's only one main accommodation in the city of North Pole, and that's the Hotel North Pole. A little different.
Okay, well, we are nearing the end of the hour. Excellent presentation, but I do want to offer again one last chance if anyone has any questions. I see Mr. Bringhurst, you've taken yourself off mute. Do you have a question, sir? Okay. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Ms. Hickok, Mr. McCrea. First of all, excellent presentation, but more importantly, excellent work. I didn't realize just how much you all have done, and it's outstanding. Your reaction to this pandemic and its impact upon the industry. It really is just phenomenal. And I particularly like the fact that so much of what you have done can live on and be useful after a pandemic, because they're just great marketing materials. I now want to go back and kind of mine your website just to take a dog sled tour myself. I've never actually been on a dog sled. So I can go have a chance to at least get a look at it from a warm space. So again, just phenomenal work, guys. All right. So let's see, just so everybody knows, next week, we're going to be continuing with some of the economic impacts. But in this case, rather than COVID, we're actually having Mr. Nolan Clouda with the Alaska Center for Economic Development out of UAA. He has been doing some work regarding the military and its impact both within our community, but across our state, different regions, particularly down in the Anchorage Bowl, South Central. So we're going to have Mr. Clouda with some of his outputs, some of the things they've gleaned and found from that process. Moving forward, again, we did have a really excellent presentation at the FEDC board meeting on Friday, both regarding COVID, all about COVID, but both the health aspects as well as the economic impact aspects. And I was thinking about trying to reach out to those two gentlemen to see if they might give us a presentation here. It certainly would be excellent information for you representatives and you policymakers as you begin to formulate your thoughts regarding the coming legislative session. So I may reach out again. You'll be getting that information, I know, when you get to Juneau, but it might be nice to have a little forward time to think about it. All right, if there's nothing else, again, for the good of the order, again, Ms. Hickok, Mr. McCrea, Explore Fairbanks, thank you so very much. Again, both for the presentation, but for your work. Just thank you very much. And with that, everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Have a happy, safe, healthy one. Hope you eat a bunch. Social distance as best you can. But again, have some time with your loved ones. And if we could just take, again, one more moment and have Jinx Whitaker and Jim Whitaker and his family in our prayers. All right, with that, thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.